Welcome to Fret Reps. Today you're going to practice scales without the guitar. That's right, without the guitar. Best thing about this is you can practice your scales anywhere. Your aim is to memorize the scale. Learning these repeating patterns will help you to know where you are all the time, as well as know what notes you're playing and what notes are around you. Let's get started. Grab yourself a notepad and a pen. Keep this pad and pen with you wherever you go so you can practice this exercise wherever you are. Open the pad and start at the bottom. Outside the margin, write 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This represents the strings from your point of view. Let's start with the 5 string, which is the A string. We want to start here because this is how we memorized the 3-hand patterns. Now, write the ABCs going up to G, which is the 7 notes in music. You want to space these notes apart, except for the B and C and the E and F. When you get to G, it starts over again. Remember, the B and C are always together, and the E and F are always together, and this is the repeating point, or the octave. This just keeps repeating over and over. This would be hand pattern 1. This would be hand pattern 2, and this is hand pattern 3. Then the rest of the hand pattern sequence. So, rule number 1 is B and C are always next to each other, and the E and F are always next to each other. Rule number 2 is E and F are always on top of B and C on the next string. That makes this a little block of notes that are always together. So on the 6th string, the B and C would go here. Here on the octave, the repeat, the E and the F go on top. And for the octave of the 6th string, the B goes under the E. Here on the 6th string, the octave goes on the bottom left corner. Which brings me to rule 3. Think of rule 3 like this. Draw out a tic-tac-toe grid. The lines going up and down are the frets, and the block spaces are the fretboard spaces. The bottom left and top right are always the same note, 1 octave apart. In other words, the top right corner is where the repeat happens. So the E goes here on the 6th string and the F goes next to it, according to rule number 3. Skip a space and put in the G. Then skip a space and write an A. Then skip a space and there is the B and C group. Skip a space and put the D. It continues with the octave. Notice how the D is always on top of the A. And how the E is always under the A. So here's an A, and there would be an E here. But this is the last string unless you have a 7-string guitar. On the 4th string, what goes over the A? That's right. The G is always above the D, which would be here as well. And what goes over the E note? You might be tempted to put a note over the F, but a space goes there. Then the BC group goes next. Then continue the octave. Continue these rules with the 3rd string and repeat the octave. Mostly you want to remember that the B and C grouping always goes under the E and F grouping. And after you finish the 7 notes, it repeats at the octave. Then we come to the 2nd string, the B string. Everyone who will teach you about the B string will tell you about the B string shift. This is where the repeating pattern will have a shift in the pattern. If you notice, each string starts with the 4th note in the string before it. Since the B string shifts up 1 fret, It will start with the third note of the string above it, which is B. If you look at the D and notice how it's over the A. On the B string, the D is one fret up over a space, not over the A. And the C goes here and the B right next to it. When you complete the sequence up to the octave, you'll see how everything looks off. This is something all guitarists have to deal with. This makes rule number 4. The B string, the second string, is always shifted up one fret. Now these two strings are even like the others. That makes the first note the same as the fourth note of the string above it, which is an E. Then continue the rules going up through the notes. To recap, starting with the first note in the alphabet, the sequence will be A, skip, B, C, skip, D, skip, E, F, skip, G, skip. Octave. Just remember that the B and C group are always together and the E and F are always together, and you should be fine. This little group of 4 notes in a square can be spotted all over the neck. Looking at it from the perspective of the neck labels, anywhere you see this group of 4, you'll always know that this is the B, C, E, F group. Of course, the B string skip will look different. Just continue this exercise all the way up the page. Part 2 of learning the scales without the guitar is going to focus on dots only. This will solidify the pattern sequence without having to know any notes.